Sunday, an interesting ice hockey telecast on the ABC, and we're going to see the Australian All-Stars versus the Canadian Trailblazers. Let's meet a Canadian expatriate playing for the Australians, talking to Bob Vincent.
Well, Danny, you've been here in Australia for just over a month now. Can you tell us first off the standard of the Blazers?
Well, they're going to be a strong intermediate team from Western Canada, and they come from a small town, and that usually means pretty rugged play. I think we put together a team that can give them a good shot for their money. These low boards are going to hurt a little bit. They hit you around the hips. We'll ride some of the bigger boys over them.
What do you think of the Australian ice hockey standard since you've been playing out here?
The younger kids are coming right along. I think they're only a couple strides behind our Canadian kids back home. But the older kids that started when they're 20 or 21 years old, they don't have anywhere to go. They're going to stay just about the ability they are now. And the rink owners are trying. I understand profit and loss, and they're trying their darndest to institute hockey into it. And I think it's got a chance here. I think hockey can really make something here.
So live on...
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Prince Alfred Park on the inner city suburb of Surrey Hills here in Sydney for the Ice Hockey International clash between the Canadian Trailblazers and the City of Sydney Australian All-Stars hockey team. Stand by for the national anthems, please, of both countries. And now the Australian national anthem. Well, as you can hear from the crowd here at the Prince Alfred rink, it's a very partisan Australian crowd to watch the match between the Australian All-Stars and the Canadian Trailblazers. At the moment we have an exchange of trinkets, which is a traditional part of an international ice hockey match. If we can have a look now at the two teams. First of all, the Canadian visitors, the Canadian Trailblazers from the far west province of Canada. My co-commentator today for the match is Sandy Logan. We'll get him to run through the Canadian teams.
Thanks very much, Bob. Starting off, we've got the reserve goalkeeper, John Hagee, number 2. On defense, he's a big boy, Brian Kuffner. Brian's about 6'3". Number 6 is Grant Goodall, another defenseman. And then number 7 Mr. Wolfson. Also number 8, Ron Rebellato. Number 9, Murray Gordon. Number 11, Al Sidoni. Al's a tough player. He's a young guy, and look out for some action from him. Number 12, Larmore. Number 14, Neil Ridenauer. Number 16, Glenn Sanders, who scored a few goals on this tour so far. Number 17, Wayne McIntyre. In goal starting tonight is Brian Cochet. And number 88, Matt McCarthy.
Well, that's the Canadian Trailblazers team. Looking now at the Australian All-Stars lineup. Peter Aiken, who is a reserve goalie for the match. Jim Hoare, number 2, the left defensive player. Dan Peterson, Cowboy Peterson, as he's known to ice hockey fans throughout Australia, right defensive player and a spectacular man on ice. Noel Taylor, right defence, a very young player in the Australian All-Star team. John Loden. George Denning, the Australian captain, is the left wing, number 7. Very aggressive man, and you'll be seeing a lot of him on the ice this afternoon. Number 8 is Peter Wozdecki, the left wing. Bobby Brown, a very, very aggressive player, number 9. We'll be talking to him hopefully during the match, Bobby Brown. Keep your eye on him because he's an outstanding player, as is too John Glenn. And number 11, Cholho Kim, the centre, a Korean player playing for the Australian All-Stars, has been in Australia for about 8 or 9 weeks, I think. A very, very aggressive man on the ice. Number 12 is Phil Ginsberg, 13, Ramo Carlson, 15, Kevin Price, 16, Darryl McDonald, the centre, 18, Michael Solomon, the right wing, and the starting goalie for this afternoon's match, Burke Thornton, and the Australian coach is Gordon Betters. Well, if we can get the cameras on a couple of the Australian players first off. Number 7 is the Australian captain at the right of the goalie at the moment. George Kenning, I beg your pardon. He's a 32-year-old computer analysis captain of the Australian team. He came to Australia in 1973 from Canada, so he has a lot to talk about with these Canadians. From Winnipeg, has represented it and captained New South Wales a number of times. A very strong and robust player. Very dangerous when close to the net. Number 9, Bobby Brown, a 27-year-old Australian. He's best known for his deadly slap shot, and he, as I mentioned earlier in my preview, he's a very fiery player. Brown is most dangerous when given the goalie, only the goalie to beat, because he's more than likely just to plough straight over the top. As the two teams get together for the huddle, we now approach the official start of the match with the Minister for Sport and Recreation in New South Wales, Mr. Ken Booth, coming out onto centre ice with the two referees for a ceremonial face-off and the drop of the puck. Well, Sandy, while this formal part of the ceremonies is going on, a quick preview of what you think this match will turn out to be.
Bob, the Trailblazers have got a lot to gain from this game if they win, and a lot to lose. They've lost the first of the 3-game series with the All-Stars 3-2 Wednesday evening. And today, are out here to try and change things around. Last night in Newcastle, they played a tough and torrid match against the Newcastle North Stars, narrowly winning 7-6. They were 6-3 up in the last 10 minutes and allowed the North Stars to come back to tie it up and then put it ahead. We can expect a hard game from the Blazers. While they're here on a holiday, they're certainly here to play hard, fast hockey, and we can expect that from them today.
Well, both teams now, starting teams on the ice, and the referee calling for the face-off to commence the match.
Let's look out for young Cholho Kim here, number 11, taking the face-off. He's very quick on the draw, and it's so important to win the face-off.
Well, there it is, and it's gone to the left wing. Carlson putting it down off the boards for the Australian team. Kenning is up there. It's intercepted by Brown. A quick slap shot by Brown. Kenning backhanded behind the net, and the Blazers picking it up. Iced across the blue line. Could be a call for icing. Peterson is back there for the Australian team. Has it at the back of the Australian goalie in the defensive zone, looking for a man on the left wing, but it's intercepted now by the Blazers. Back inside to...
Here's a chance.
There's a chance there, but just gone, left for the goalie's stick. And now the Blazers still on the Australian attacking zone. Another slap shot. Well blocked by Aiken. Off the stick. Rabalco at the back of the Australian net. Two quick shots already by the Canadians. As Peterson moves in, attempting to freeze the puck there, but it's regained by the Canadians. shot. Now Kim it is for the Australians. Looking for Kenning on the inside, but the Blazers have it off the boards. Sidoni open in the Australian attacking zone. Well blocked by Carlson. Attempting a back shot. Frozen by Aitken on the net. Well, a very, very vigorous start there by the Blazers, Sandy.
Yes, quite surprising. The Blazers dominating play in the opening minutes of this game. Certainly not giving the All-Stars much of a chance to bring the puck out of their own end. Let's watch out for this line again. Daryl McDonald at center, John Glenn on right wing, and Peter Wozdecki on left wing for the All-Stars.
Well, McCarthy it is who takes the face off for the Canadians, and it's taken up by John Glenn. Intercepted there and picked up again by McDonald in centre ice. There's McCarthy trapping it back to the Blazers, but McDonald has it again for the Australian All-Stars, looking for Glenn on the right wing. Again it's McCarthy, off the boards, into the corner, behind the Australian goal. Back goes Sidoni. Rydenor fighting there with McIntyre, a young player. Aiken has it, taps it out. McDonald on the left wing, reversing play. Picking up Wozdecki on the left wing for the Australians. Now it's Hoare. Play on centre ice. McDonald open in the centre. Intercepted by the Canadians. McCarthy down the right wing. A chance looking for the man inside. He stops, goes back and is blocked by Hoare. And once again the puck frozen on the board.
Yes, it looks quite even, Bob. Both sides are testing each other. The Blazers goalie, I don't think, has had much work yet, except for the opening few seconds. I think the All-Stars are a little bit surprised by the way the Blazers have come out so strong in these first few minutes.
Well, Better's using all players from the Australian All-Stars team. Again, we have another change on the run, as Ribalto wins the face-off for the Canadians. Gone in behind the Australian goal. Peterson checking strongly. Down goes one Canadian. Over centre ice goes the puck. It's picked up by Goodall back of the Canadian defensive zone. Now on centre ice. That's Sidoni. Carlson finding Logan open. It's gone back to Peterson in the Australian defensive zone. Looking for Solomon open on the left wing. He can't take the puck off the boards. Lamore once again. He's found Sanders open. Intercepted by the Australians. Picked up again by Lamore in his own defensive area. Over the centre line he goes. Well checked there by the Australians and picked up by McDonald. Solomon, I beg your pardon. Now Lamore again.
Oh, well read.
Setting down again. Intercepted by Peterson. Looking for a player open. A chance for the Australians.
Play has been whistled dead, Bob, because the Australian player there, Michael Solomon, number 18, played the puck with a high stick. So the face-off will now be outside that blue line.
Lifting the stick over his shoulder and hitting down on the puck, actually almost like a tennis shot.
That's right, very much like it.
So the face-off in the Blazers defensive zone. Revelato off the boards. That's Rydenor. Kim back to the Australians. Well checked by Rydenor. Ginsberg. A slap shot by Kuffner. Well taken by Hoare. Here's Kenning open. Well, Brown, Kenning.
Oh, good defensive play there by young Willie Wilson.
Lamore. Back of the Australian, attempting to ram it in on the short side. Well frozen. Aitken getting the stick round and freezing the punt against the Australian goal. What was the reason there for Aitken starting as goalies, Sandy?
I'm surprised. I know Burke Thornton was slated to start this game, and possibly he's gone down with something before the game. We'll have to find out from the coach later on just what his reasons were. But Peter Aitken definitely starting in net there with the familiar black, yellow and white face mask.
So the face-off taken by the Australians as Hoare puts it across the back of the goal. Along the boards it comes from Glenn to Gwozdecki. Now the Canadians have it. The slap shot, well saved off the glove. Tremendous save by Peter Aiken, and that was a great shot way out off the point from Noel Lamour.
That was a fine shot. In fact, on this face-off, it's being called outside the blue line because one of the Canadian players, I think it was Wayne McIntyre, hit the puck down with a high stick.
Play on centre ice as Gwozdecki picks it up on the left wing for the Australians.
Offside called there, Bob. The call on offside in ice hockey, when the puck goes over the blue line after the player, in other words, if the player precedes the puck crossing that blue line, it's offside.
Right, the face-off taken and won by McCarthy for the Canadians. The Australians now on the attack in the defensive zone for the Canadians. Hoare has it on the left wing. It's gone across to Gwozdecki. Drifts past the goalie, Koshi. Heavy checking there from Sidoni. Oh, attempted backhand shot there from McCarthy. Almost came off. It was well picked up by Aiken. McCarthy fighting strongly for the Blazers at the back of the Australian goal. Hit out by Ginsberg. Dumped to the centre ice, intercepted now by Hoare on the left wing for the Australians. Looking for McDonald, open on the right-hand side. McDonald has it in the corner for the Australians. Glenn is on the inside, but there is Sidoni to pick it up. Peterson taking the pack, setting up play at the back of the Australian goal, looking for his man open. Decides to go to the right wing to Glenn. Rydnor. McIntyre it was meant for, but it went past him. Peterson has the defensive position for the Australians. Glenn again. Heavy checking by Rydnor. It's in behind the Australian goals. Watch it on the short side. Well checked. Gwozdecki down the left wing. There's Glenn open in the centre. It went behind him. McDonald will have to pick it up. Kofner. Change on the run for the Australians. Solomon, Loden, Peterson on, Carlson, along with Price, a defensive line-up for the Australians. A high puck picked up by Loden on the right wing. Price is open in the centre. Shot by Loden goes wide. Two saves by Kolshi. Out the back of the Canadian net. Rydnor.
Could be icing on this play.
Back goes Carlsberg. Now that's a particular ruling in ice hockey which is a little bit difficult to explain. Icing.
It is, Bob. I'll do my best. If the puck is shot from behind the defending team's center ice line, that red line, and isn't intercepted all the way down, then icing is called against that team. And in that case, the Blazers shot the puck all the way down the ice, and icing was called against them.
Similar to kicking out on the full and run to lead. The ball goes back to where the kick was kicked out. So in the case of ice hockey, if it goes over the blue line, well then the puck comes back to where the player hit it from. A quick slap shot, attempted by the Canadians. Sidoni, it was brought down with heavy checking by Carlson. They're at the back of the Australian net. Solomon brings it out for the Australians. Loden on the forwards. Solomon again. A chance for the Canadians. No, it's divorced out by Loden. Price. Quick slap shot. Nice save off the stick.
That was a good save by Brian Cochet there. Good save in net.
10 minutes gone in the first period. Attempt by Sidoni. It's a backhand shot high over the back of the net. Some heavy checking there by Sanders on the Australians. Again, this time by Lamour off the right point.
Puck shot out over the board, so play will be called back to the point from which the puck was shot out.
Well, Bet is changing his players at a fairly rapid rate here, keeping them all on the ice, keeping them going, and the pressure right on the Canadians. No score after about 11 minutes of the first period. Ginsberg Ginsberg taking it out off the boards for the Australians. Brown in hot pursuit. It's Kuffner in the defensive zone for the Canadians. Back over to the left wing where it's taken up by Ginsberg again. Attempts to send it down the boards, but he's intercepted and checked by the Canadians. Kim has it now for the Australians behind the goal. Waiting as he sets up play. Back in behind the goal. Can't find a player open. Eventually does on the left wing. To Kenny. Kuffner. A huge man, this Kuffner. Gloved down by Hoare. Picked up again by Kim. Kenning is open. Looking for Bobby Brown in the corner. Brown and Kuffner down together on the boards at the back of the Canadian goal. He is a huge man, that Kuffner.
He is. Brian Kuffner, in fact, he's 6'1". He weighs 200 pounds. He's a married man. He's 27 years old. He's a defenseman and played most of his minor hockey in Trail, which is a small town in British Columbia of about 10 to 15,000 people, depending on the season and depending on whether there's work.
So the face-off now in the Canadian defensive zone. Off the skates goes Sidoni. Nicely done. Donald. Core now. Centre ice. Gently passes across to McDonald, but the Canadians are there to foil any attempts. McDonald in centre ice. Ginsberg. Core again. Intercepted again, this time by Gordon. Sidoni coming in on Hoare. It's Gordon. Now McDonald for the Australians. Back to Gwozdecki. Goodall, he's been covering a lot of ice.
Offside called there. Would have been a good chance for the Australians. They had 2 men in with only 1 defenseman back. Grant Goodall, who you just mentioned, he is a good performer. He's in both games has played certainly his fair share of ice time. In fact, probably more than his fair share. But he's a good, consistent performer.
Well, the Canadian Trailblazers so far having 2 very close matches on their tour. They were defeated by the Sydney Allstars on Wednesday night 3-2 in the final period, and escaped with a 7-6 win on last night against the North Stars in Newcastle. Australia on the attack now. The Canadians have it. It's brought up to centre ice where Peterson picks it up for the Australians. McDonald off the boards. Peterson picks it up again into the corner. Look for the checking. Widener right on top of Peterson. The puck backhanded back over the blue line.
There won't be icing on this call because it was an all-star player who passed that puck back and it went all the way down the ice.
Glenn trapped in by the Canadians. He has it out now for Australia. Down the right wing to McDonald. Carlson is open. The chance for the Australians. A shot. And it's in.
Have they called it a goal?
A tremendous pass across the ice from McDonald, where it was picked up by, I think it was picked up by Glenn in the centre ice.
Well, one of the referees has called time, indicating that there may be some doubt as to whether that puck actually crossed the line.
So you can see there that Glenn took it down the left wing.
Pass over to McDonald.
McDonald had it in centre ice.
He could
see
his left winger there. It was Gwozdecki, yes.
Gwozdecki, who took it right into the goalie. And the referee has called a goal. It was Peterson who put the goal in for the Australian All-Stars with the assist from Gwozdecki. So after
about 15 minutes of play, Bob.
15 minutes of play in the first period, the Australian All-Stars leading 1-0. I think we'll see some aggressive hockey now from the Canadians. McIntyre. Carlson, loaded in centre ice, the Australians. Pick shot, saved off the stick. Koshi. Back to Peterson. With Solomon open on the left wing. Funny shot, missed the puck. Revelato. Picked up by Loden. Mistake there by the Canadians. Backhand shot from Loden. Well blocked by Koshi. Canadians at the back of the goal. Widener open on the left wing for the Canadians. Revelato has a quick snapshot. no good. Checking there by McIntyre. Solomon on the board. In the corner, picked up by Peterson. Out to Solomon. McIntyre has it for the Canadians. Well saved by Carlson, where Solomon has it now in centre right. Loden, a change on the run for the Canadians. On the ice now, Sidoni, battling with the puck on the boards. It's gone free on centre ice. Now Sidoni has it. Goes around Loden. Quick shot wide of the goal. Aiken bringing it in for Peterson to pick up behind the goal. Glove down.
Play is whistle dead there, Bob, as the puck goes over the boards and out into the crowd.
Well, fairly aggressive start by both teams, although they're going to become a little bit more aggressive probably as the match goes on towards the second and third periods. For the Australians. There's Kim. This man is dynamite on stage. Nothing behind the net. Kim from good ran, but missed by the Australians.
Another good shot by Kenny.
4 on centre ice. Brown was who went into the net on that shot. Was well saved by Kolschi.
There's a saying in hockey, Bob, that your goalie is God, and keeping that in mind, it's a defenseman's job always to protect his goalie at almost any cost. I'm surprised there that the Blazers allowed Salaho Kim, the speedy centerman there, to run in on the goalie like that and have a stab at the puck.
Well, he was left wide open, wasn't he, Kolschi?
He was. He was, so maybe he was asking for it.
McIntyre, great little player, only 18 years old. That's Gordon now. Down the right wing. Look for the man open on the inside. Oh, left off the skates by McIntyre. A chance for the Canadians gone begging. Ginsberg and McIntyre. Ginsberg back to Kenning. Australian captain on the left wing. Poor in centre of the Australian defensive zone. Ginsberg finds Kim open on centre right. Kenning again, a little bit in front of Kenning. Back into the Australian defensive zone, right off the backboards. Well, Hall will pick up behind the Australian goal. Kim. One way, the other way, back around to Hall. Clever play by Kim. Nice by Hall, far to right. Sidoni.
Here comes an icing coming up. The puck obviously shot from behind center ice all the way down. Face off will be back in the Blazers defending zone.
Coming off Lamore then, who had the puck in his own defensive zone, well in behind the goal. And the puck coming well down over the blue line. Icing called and the face off in the attacking zone for the Australians. McDonald to take the face off with Rebellato for the Canadians. Ooh, quick snap shot there by Peterson. He scored a tremendous goal in the match, Sydney Allstars versus the Blazers on Wednesday night.
He did, Bob. I'd say that shot, though we can't see it here today, that shot of Dan's Peterson was probably doing 70 miles an hour.
Oh, high shot there from Glenn. The puck has gone way out over the back fence, and I don't even know whether it's still in the arena, that one. So the face-off now. In the Australian attacking zone with McDonald and Rebellato for the Canadians once again. Most fighting for the puck in front of the Canadians' goal. Down on the ice goes Kolschi, freezes the puck. And the face-off once again in the same spot. On the red dot. Quick shot by Glenn. Well saved by Kolschi. So the end of the first period now, and the Australian All-Stars leading the Trailblazers by 1-0. Sandy, how did you see that first period?
Well, I found it exciting, though a wee bit scrappy. Both teams are feeling each other out for this second game, but not quite as tight as it could have been. Some good opportunities for both teams. In fact, I'd be interested to know what the shots on net were. I'd say it was fairly even throughout that first period. We should keep in mind, Bob, that the tour for the Trailblazers continues tomorrow when they fly up to Brisbane, where Monday night at the Four Seasons Ice Palace in Toomble, starting at 6 p.m., they play against the Queensland team. Then again on Wednesday, they have a second game in Brisbane beginning at 8 p.m. at the Four Seasons Palace. This is the first tour of a Canadian team in Australia this year, and while they are in fact only a commercial league team who play more for recreation than in strict competition, it's about the caliber of hockey we presently enjoy here in Australia. They're giving us tough competition. They are more than our match, although it was interesting to see on Wednesday night the All-Stars defeating them 3-2. This is a good lead-up, this series, to the new Australian National Ice Hockey League, which was launched earlier this week in Sydney and begins June 6 and 7 when the Ringwood Rangers from Melbourne, probably one of the favorites in this new league, travel to Newcastle to play the Newcastle North Stars Saturday evening, June 6th, and then Sunday evening, June 7th, here in Sydney against the Sydney Allstars. The league includes teams from Adelaide, one team from Adelaide, 4 teams from Melbourne, 1 team from Sydney, and 1 from Newcastle.
With me at the moment is Mr. Pat Burley, who is the proprietor of the Prince Alfred skating rink and a proprietor of a number of rinks in Melbourne. Pat, if I could, we'll discuss with you the introduction of the National League for Ice Hockey here in Australia, which gets underway in June.
Yes, next week, Bob. A team from Melbourne, one of my rinks from Sydney and Melbourne, is Ringwood. It comes to Sydney. It plays Newcastle next Saturday night at Newcastle and plays Prince Alfred Park, the City of Sydney team, here next Sunday evening. At the same time, Adelaide visits Melbourne and plays 2 games in Melbourne next weekend. We've got a puck around here, Bob.
Pee-wees on the ice, we might get knocked over here.
Yes, it's been a long time getting this National League underway, and it's been a dream of mine and several other people in our industry, and I think it'll be a great thing for ice hockey. If we just look around and see the crowd here today, I'm delighted with that, at this international game here, and next Sunday night I know we've got a very big crowd coming to see Ringwood play Prince Alfred Park here.
Well, Pat, is this a move towards a sort of semi-professional ice hockey league in Australia?
Well, I guess you'd have to say that. It is a move towards that. It's not professional at this moment. All the players have jobs, of course. Many of them come from Canada. I suppose half of the players playing in the National League will be Canadians. It's their off-season from Canada, and they come over here and play in their summer and our winter. And they love the game, and we love to have them here. They improve the standard tremendously.
How important are the Canadians and the players from the Northern Hemisphere in keeping the professionalism or the high standard of hockey going in this country?
Well, it's very important to us. My goodness, we're going to get knocked over here. It's extremely important to have the Canadians here. They talk a different language of ice hockey. They create a tremendous atmosphere around it, and they inspire all the local boys. I don't think we could do without them. We need them for coaching. It's tremendous to have them.
What sort of effect have they had on the Australian standard, do you think?
Well, they've raised it quite dramatically. Unfortunately, our international teams that have gone away in recent years aren't allowed to have any of these Canadians in it, and therefore they're a bit light on for talent. But it's coming fast, and with the development of all our junior teams throughout Australia, it won't be long before we're really up there.
Do you feel that it may be restricting the development of Australian players to a little extent, having so many international players in the Australian teams?
Yes, I think that you've got something there, and we have to be very careful about that. I would say that we have to put a limit on the number of international players playing in each team. I would like to see something of 4 or 5 maximum. the remainder to be Australian boys.
Well, there's a number of internationals in this Australian All-Star team today, but Bobby Brown, of course, the centre for the Australian team, is a very aggressive player.
Well, Bobby would be probably one of the best Australians we've ever produced. He's very fast and very talented, but he's learned all he's learned from Canadians and playing with Canadians, and that's the way we've got to do it. We just have to learn from these guys who know all about the game.
Well, Pat will be looking forward very much to the start of the National League, and let's hope it follows in the footsteps of soccer and basketball and really becomes a popular sport.
Can I just tell you the teams we have at the moment? We have a team from Adelaide. They've got a beautiful new arena over in Adelaide, probably one of the best arenas in the world, hockey general skating arenas. We have a team from Newcastle. We have City of Sydney playing out of here at Prince Alfred Park. And in Melbourne we have 4 teams, Dandenong, Oakley, Ringwood and Footscray. So next year we hope to have Queensland in it, Canberra in it, Blacktown. It's going to develop from here.
Right, well, the players back on the ice now for the start of the second period, with the Australian All-Stars leading 1-0.
Oh, Bob, that was quite an interesting conversation with Pat Burley there, Melbourne rink entrepreneur who has the Ringwood Iceland rink, the Footscray Iceland rink, and he is the lessee here in Sydney of the Prince Alfred Park Iceland rink. As we get underway for the start of the second period, I've learned that the Trailblazer goalie Brian Cochet faced 12 shots in that first period, and Australian All-Star goalie Peter Aiken faced 4 shots as we wait for Glenn Gilbert to begin play in this second period.
So the face-off now for the second period, Australia leading 1-0, and we can look for an early aggressive start by both teams trying to regain that goal or get 1 goal in front. Kim it is, who has Sidoni trapped on the boards.
Quite an interesting story, Bob, as we saw Chul-Ho Kim there, very light build, checked into the boards. He never wore shoulder pads until he started playing hockey here a few months ago. And I guess he finds the going a little bit rougher than in South Korea and finds that need for equipment.
I think the players are probably a little bit bigger here than over there too.
You're quite right, yep.
Especially when you see some of these 6'3" Canadians. The Australians now in their defensive zone, back to centre ice, cut down by Brown. Kim has it on the right wing for the Australians. Back in the Brown shot. Oh! Magnificent goal from Bobby Brown. I thought that went in. It must have gone up.
Oh, and another hard shot, Bob.
That was a tremendous shot from Bobby Brown. I thought that went in and came out.
It certainly looked like it, and it looks like the goalie Brian Cochet may have taken a bit of a knock during that melee. The initial shot looked as though it picked that upper corner, left-hand corner above his left shoulder, but in fact went into the side of the net. But boy, that was a bullet of a shot. Nice team play there, nice team play.
Well set up by Kim, and back to Brown, who had that shot. It was a tremendous shot off the point. Kofner in the defensive zone for the Canadians. Flipped back in by Wozdecki, attempting to freeze the puck now on the Canadian goal structure.
I might take this opportunity, if I could, Bob, just to say hello to a longtime ice hockey player, Les Berry, who recently came down to Sydney on what he thought might be his last chance to see some ice hockey before he headed back up to Queensland.
The puck out over the rink. Kofner picking it up for the Canadian defence, so the face-off to take place on the blue line on centre ice. McIntyre for Ginsberg.
That's some sloppy defensive work there.
Very sloppy defensive work. No pressure on the players at all from the Canadians. McCarthy attempting to put some pressure on, but it's taken away by Ginsberg on the right wing, who finds McDonald open. Kufner has it now, back to McCarthy. Over on the right wing, attempting to pull the puck into centre ice. Checking there, almost holding by one of the Australian players. Wozdecki, Glenn Cozen, and leaves the puck to him.
Very good call there by the referee, Glenn Gilbert. That was an offside pass that could have been deceiving at first glance, but in fact Wozdecki was behind the puck. Rather, was in front of the puck. The puck was behind him as he crossed that blue line, an obvious offside.
So Loden and Gordon for the face-off. Sidoni being called on the ice.
He is a real workhorse, that number 11 Allstars. Doesn't give up. Never gives up.
He must have spent 2/3 of the ice time out there today.
Already, yes.
Gordon. There's Peterson. Moves very well, Peterson.
Yeah, Cowboy Peterson's really made a name for himself since he arrived on the Sydney hockey scene. In fact, he'll keep making a name for himself with the way he plays. He's an excellent player.
Lamore attempting to pass the puck down the boards, but it went right over the fence, out of the ring.
Face-off will be outside the Blazers' blue line, as it was a All-Star player who put that puck out.
Down the left wing goes Sidoni. Peterson checking. Coming in again, Peterson. Behind him, Gordon. Peterson it is who wins the battle on the boards. Solomon. Loden. There's no one down here to follow on for the Australians.
No, it doesn't appear to be much thought in the play of the Australians at the moment. They just seem to be passing the puck up and down without too much construction.
Oh, that was dangerous play there too by Aiken. Up near his goal. Peterson had to fight for the puck. He was lucky to freeze it there because that was very poor play by Aiken. He should really have cleared the puck much quicker than that.
Yep, he almost asked for it by holding that puck in there. Things getting a little bit hot around the net. It is often a trouble spot in ice hockey matches because the puck is trying to be put into that net. Everyone's trying to keep it out. When that happens, you tend to have clashes.
So Kim
losing that
on
face
the ice with Goodall. McIntyre. Hoofner. Back across to Willie Wilson. McIntyre again. Revelato and Ryder were in the ties then, but they couldn't get the puck across. Here's Kim. McIntyre. Kim. A chance now for the Australians to Brown brings it up over centre right. He's looking for Kenning open on the inside. Hoofner takes it away for the Canadians. Kim has it. A shot for Brown, but it went under his stick, off the skate. McIntyre with no stick on the ice. McDonald, Ginsberg. A hasty shot there from Ginsberg. Could have helped set up play. Brown. Revelato for the Canadians at the back of his goal, being challenged by Kim. Back in again behind his goal. Challenged again by Brown. This time he gets it away on the left side to Rydnor. Shot blocked by Ginsberg. Back over the blue line.
Both teams changing on the fly. The pace is getting quite toward, and they're not waiting for whistles to change up.
Back into the corner goes the puck. Play whistle up.
Well, Bob, it's an interesting second period of hockey here. We've got not any change, and certainly in the vigor and the vim that these players are showing. They're giving it all they've got, and we've got a good hockey game on our hands.
The Canadians have one extra player on the ice, and Gordon's been called off.
Yep, that's a 2-minute penalty if you play like that.
Well won by the Canadians. Here's Sidoni again, battling with the puck.
Oh, he's strong. Look at that. Look at that.
Oh, well done. Inside a shot.
Oh, a fine save by Peter Aiken. Fine leg save. Got that right leg just there in time.
That was a full body save, wasn't it?
It was.
He
He
right
walked
down on the ice with a complete body.
Sidoni walked right through the forwards, through the defense, and his last line that he had to get past was goalie Peter Aiken there, who came up with a fine save just when it was needed.
Now Glenn has given it back to Peterson in the Australian defensive area. Wozdecki picked up again by Glenn on the right wing, left behind, and here's the danger man, Sidoni, once again going up to the Australian defence. Peterson blocks it with
Cowboy
his
Peterson.
This boy's dangerous within the attacking zone. A shot by McDonald, who's broken his stick. Stick left on the ice. Peterson picking up the puck for Australia to put it back in the defensive zone. McDonald again back on the ice with another stick. There's goal. This will go just before the snap shot from Alfred McDonald. What was that called up because of the stick being on the ice?
No, actually play can continue, Bob, when a broken stick is dropped on the ice. There was a man offside in that position. I believe it was Peter Gwozdecki was still inside the blue line on that play. The puck had already come out, and McDonald took it back in with a man inside.
McDonald continuing his good form in the face-off. Found Glenn open. It went between his legs. Gordon now for the All-Stars. Gwozdecki turning it back inside where Glenn has it.
Offside again.
Backhand pass looking for McDonald on the inside, but he beat the puck over the blue line, so offside call.
We notice that some of the Blazers are wearing helmets and some aren't. In Australia at the moment, every ice hockey player must wear a helmet, and in fact every player under 16 must, as of today, have a full face mask on his helmet. Because of the league in which the Blazers play in, they aren't forced to wear a helmet.
Well, there we saw some good defensive work again by Peterson.
Yes, he's their Iron Man on defense, Dan Peterson.
Glenn up the centre. Off the glove, McDonald. Gordon down the left wing for the Canadians.
It could be icing called here on this play if one of the Australians get there first.
Noel Taylor it was who went back and picked up the puck for the Australians. So icing called and the puck to come back into the Blazers defensive zone. 1-0. And we've had 10 minutes gone in the second period, so the match virtually half over. Face-off taken at the back of the net by the Canadians. Loden went in to pick it up for the Australians, but he couldn't get it off.
Oh, nice pass from Goodall up to Rebellato.
Oh, another great slap shot there by Sanders. Well blocked by Aiken. Goodall. The Canadians setting up their play well now in the centre of ice. Rebellato. There's Sanders. Back to Rebellato. On the short side. Blocked by Aiken.
Here's a chance to the All-Stars.
A good pass. Picked up by Price. A shot. Glove save on the left-hand side by Koshy.
Yeah, unfortunately, Price just didn't get all the wood he could on that puck. He had a good chance of putting it in the short side, but Koshy again came up with the save when it was needed.
Kim calling in Brown behind him on the left side. In the defensive zone. Kim losing the face-off.
The Blazers break out.
Breaking out of their defensive area. It's Friedner taking it up the left wing. Looking for a man open on centre ice. Can't pick him up. Hoare gets it for the Australians. Brown back to Hoare. Left behind by the Australians. A chance now for McIntyre. McIntyre towards Aiken. A shot. That's a goal. McIntyre. Young 18-year-old player for the Blazers. Bad defensive work there by the Australians because really they had the puck at their mercy.
They had the puck, and the older dodge, never be the last man out of your own end with the puck, came there. McIntyre, nice move around Ginsberg to his left, and with only the goalie to beat, Aiken leaves his legs open, and it looks as though it goes between his legs. A nice goal.
So 1-1 now. About 12 minutes gone in the second period. The Blazers back on the scoreboard. Here's Kenning for the Australians.
Watch his shot. He's got a hard shot.
Kenning again. Oh! Just missing on the right-hand side. Left hand of the goalie. A good attempt by Kenning. Brown on the short side.
Trying to get it back to the point, man.
Couldn't get it back far enough for Peterson. He was a little bit far out.
Oh, no.
Here's a bad chance now for the Canadians. Another goal. McCarthy.
Matt McCarthy making no mistake whatsoever. Stole the puck from young defenseman Noel Taylor and had only the goalie to beat again. Oh, we can see a second look at this. Taylor overskates the puck. Stolen by McCarthy, who skates in on Aiken. Deeks to his left and just past his outstretched leg. A nice goal by McCarthy.
The Blazers up 2-1. 14 minutes gone in the second period. McDonald for the Australian All-Stars. Glenn. Wozdecki.
Here the Blazers once again on the attack.
Taken away by Goodall. Down centre ice. Gordon, a shot. Goal number 3. Goal number 3 to the Blazers. And from 1-0 at the end of the first period, the Blazers are leading 3 goals to 1.
That's a matter of about 100 seconds there, Bob, in which they've come back with power you wouldn't believe. A nice check there by Ginsberg, but the man left open on the left wing there.
So it's all stops out now for the Australians. They're in big trouble. It's 3-1.
Yes, I think we can see it.
McDonald. Oh, what a goal! A back pass into Glenn. And the Australians have hit back.
That was a pretty three-way play there. John Glenn, Daryl McDonald, and Peter Wozdecki combining there with a beautiful team effort. Here's McDonald, over to Glenn, and in the corner, no doubt about it.
Oh, what an exciting stanza of play. 3 or 4 minutes of play where we've had 4 goals. 3-2 now. As the Australians hit back towards the end of this second period. McDonald. Checked. And the penalty call.
I can hear players' comments, Bob. They're complaining about the refs, but I think the referees are doing a very good job here. They're letting play flow from end to end, and so far haven't called a penalty in this game.
Left behind by Rydnor. Kufner at the back of the boards. Checked by Glenn. Picked up by McDonald. Finds Ginsberg. Chance for Wozdecki again on the short side. Taking it in. McDonald. Glenn.
He's this young Daryl McDonald not giving up at all.
Wozdecki drops his stick, regathers as Rydnor passes down the right wing, intercepted by Hoare. Here's Wilson to Rydnor on the left wing, looking for the man open on the inside, but he's slammed in against the boards by Ginsberg. Picked up by Hoare for the Australians. Here's McDonald down the left wing, 3-on-1. Wozdecki on the inside, too far. Finds Price, but he can't handle it. Price checked against the boards, picked up by Wozdecki. Back to Ginsberg, a slap shot off the skates, Loden across. And Peterson it will be, who'll have to go back for the puck for the Australians. He's met by McCarthy, who's quickly changed on for the Canadians. And met well by McCarthy. That was dangerous play, bringing the
very
puck down
dangerous
the
play
front of the goal.
by Cowboy Peterson, coming in front of his own net like that.
Ginsberg, Loden, couldn't control the whole high pass. Lamore has it now for the Canadians at the back of the net. Sidoni, Ginsberg, another high pass.
Well, a very exciting part of this second period, Bob. Only a few minutes left. In fact, about 3 minutes left before the end of this second period, with the Trailblazers up 3 against the Australian All-Stars 2.
Well, Jim Hoare, I can see just down underneath me here in the Australian bench. He's got blood streaming from his mouth. He must have popped a bit of a stick or something in his face. So an injury there to Hoare.
Yeah.
Picked up by Wozdecki for the Australians. It's clear. McCarthy is on the chase for the Canadians, but Peterson has it for the Australians. Back inside, he's left it for Sidoni. Solomon, can he get there? Well comes Koshi, well off his goal, and picks it up. Sidoni diving in to pick up the puck. Loden has it now, chasing out Goodall. Well played by Goodall, bring it back in behind the Australians into the attacking zone. Carlson.
Passing, just not getting on each other's sticks. Seem to be a little bit ahead or a little bit behind each other. Here's a chance for Wilson. That's for Gordon.
Gordon on the left wing inside. Solomon it was who went down and blocked that pass. Sidoni off the glove, a shot. Quick snapshot picked up by Carlson. Down the centre he goes.
He's got Bobby Brown
Finds
open.
Bobby Brown. Over the top goes Brown. Regathers a shot. Solomon now. Solomon again. Brown on centre ice. Out to Carlson. Brown In goes Kenning into the corner, a tight position. Off the boards, trying to get it out to Brown, but he couldn't do it. Gordon was in there to pick up the puck as it came out.
Blazers about to be called for icing here. Obviously in trouble, Bob. They just dumped the puck down into the Australian All-Stars end, try and take a bit of the pressure off of their defenseman and goalie Brian Cochet.
Well, both teams working extremely hard here towards the end of the second period.
We've got just under 2 minutes remaining in this second period.
Kim to take the face-off with Revellato. Taylor, a shot. It's high over the net. Kenning. Oh, trouble here for the Australians. As Reidner takes it up. Kenning intercepts well. Nicely picked up. Kim in centre. Kim again. Kim, he has the puck open. Oh, Cochet, tremendous save. Coming right out and meeting Kim with the puck.
Fantastic. I didn't believe he could skate that fast.
Brown, Ginsberg, back to Kim. Kim again working with this puck. Back in behind the goal. Checked heavily. Reidner left it behind with the stick. Ginsberg being called back. The Australians perhaps getting a little bit too enthusiastic there. They were left with no defensive men back to chase any of the pucks coming up to the Canadians.
That was poor. Usually if your defenseman goes up into the attack, it's the job of the winger on that side to drop back and take the defenseman's spot.
So McDonald, who's done pretty well so far in the face-offs, Sandy?
He has. He's won the majority of his face-offs tonight. In fact, this line is probably the line that's clicked best. There we go, the end of the second period.
So the end of the second period now with the...
We'll have all the players off the ice.
3-2 as the Australian All-Stars going into the second period, leading 1-0. 3 goals scored in that period by the Trailblazers, and Australia hitting back with 1 goal. So 3-2 at the completion of the second period, with the Zamboni to come out. These are a very sophisticated machine which are being used extensively in the United States at the moment for scraping the ice and producing a fresh surface on the rink. They're a fairly expensive machine too, I think, Sandy. Well, they run into about $20,000, I think, don't they?
They are, in fact, Bob. This machine was just brought out from the United States about 4 months ago, and I believe it cost in the vicinity of $30,000 to $35,000. And I know it makes a heck of a difference to this ice surface here.
Well, previously it was a pretty difficult task getting the ice on an even surface, wasn't it?
It was. In fact, this rink still does suffer from something of a tilt in the ice, but that can't be helped. It's over the years the ground has frozen solid hard and has become uneven in places. Quite an exciting second period there, Bob.
Well, I think any period that sees 4 goals we saw, didn't we?
We did in that period, yes.
Quite 3 tremendous goals by the Blazers in a 2 or 3 minute stanza there, where they completely demoralised the Australian defence, and then to the Australians' credit, they came back with a good goal.
That seems to be the one area in the All-Stars, in the Australian All-Stars play, where they are lacking is defence. They have a fairly experienced defence, but without sounding critical, it might be a wee bit too experienced. We're looking at fellows who are probably getting on a few years and have seen better days, but nonetheless they are a good team and a good defensive line and offering the best that they can.
Well, a 10-minute break between the periods now as the players regather their thoughts and their tactics for the match. The Australians, of course, will have to come out and regather that goal that they are standing down. Whether or not they can with the Blazers defence working as well as it has so far in this match will be another matter.
Surprisingly so too, Bob, because the Blazers defense has suffered an injury just prior to this game. In fact, Morris Rigner, their 6'3", 215-pound defenseman, a very rugged performer, known for his end-to-end rushing and his crunching body checks. He had to pull out with an injury following last night's game in Newcastle. We hope that it isn't a serious injury and that Mo, as he's known to his teammates, will be back on the ice for the rest of this tour, but possibly just sitting off today's game in order to give that ankle a bit of a rest.
Well, in a moment we'll be talking to Bobby Brown, one of the stars of the Australian All-Star team, about how he feels the match is going so far. Sandy, how have the Canadians, I beg your pardon, found the tour so far?
Well, since they arrived last week, Bob, they've had a wonderful time. They flew into Sydney on Sunday night. It's now been a week since they've been here, and in the first couple of days, unfortunately, we had rain here in Sydney, but they had a fun time doing the sights and looking at the Opera House, having a good time. Played a game Wednesday night, and then Thursday a day off, and Friday headed up to Newcastle, where they did a tour of the Hunter Valley, were very well entertained at the Wyndham Estate, and then Saturday played a game at the Newcastle Ice Arena. While we have this opportunity, Bob, I might just remind viewers that the team travels to Brisbane after tonight's game, where they play the Queensland State team Monday night at 6 p.m. at the Four Seasons Ice Palace in Toombul, and again Wednesday night at 8 p.m. At the same arena. While we're waiting for Bob here with Australian player Bobby Brown, I might just remind people also that the new Australian National Ice Hockey League comes into being next week here in Sydney, when the Ringwood Rangers play off with the Newcastle North Stars Saturday night, and then Sunday night against the Sydney Allstars.
Well, with me at the moment, Bobby Brown, one of the stars of the Australian team, who you've seen with some spectacular action so far on the ice this afternoon. Bobby, it's been a pretty tired encounter so far for those first two periods.
It has, very hard.
How have you found the Blazers' defence? They've really set themselves up pretty well, haven't they?
They have got a good pattern to get out of their own zone. Very fast pattern.
What are you going to attempt to do so far as the Australian attack is concerned in this final period?
And we'll have to tighten up. We're very loose in the defence. That's how they got their 2 goals forced up.
Yeah, so the back of the Australian defence there near the goal a couple of times, the Australian goalie was left virtually on his own, wasn't he?
Exactly, yeah, sure.
How have you found you played against the Blazers on Wednesday night in the Sydney All-Stars match? That was an exciting match.
It was a good match. What you can see, it was very foggy here with the rain.
You've played against the Canadian teams before on a number of occasions, have you?
Yeah, CPA team last year.
Have you played in Canada yourself?
No, not yet.
Hoping to go over?
No, not my wife. I've got wife and 4 kids. I can't go over. No way.
How long have you been involved in representative hockey here in Australia?
Since I started. I played 1 year and then I went straight to representative ever since.
Have you found the standards improved at all?
Yes. It's improving a bit because the rinks are getting better. Before we didn't have very many rinks, and then got this one. In Canterbury now we can play hockey at Canterbury.
Right, looking at this final period, Bob, you're down 1 goal, 3-2, after leading for the first period 1-0. Do you see the Australians taking the match, or
yeah, we'll they're getting a bit tired. We've got 3 lines and they've only got 2. We'll come out a bit harder.
So you think it'll be the majority of players that will give you the win in the end?
Yeah, for sure.
All right, Bob, well, the best of luck. You're down 3-2. Let's see you get up and bowl over the Blazers.
Thanks, Bob. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bob. That was a good interview with Bobby Brown there. And as Bobby mentioned, in Sydney, for example, there are now rinks at Prince Alfred Park, Iceland, at Canterbury, at Blacktown. Soon a rink at Narrabeen, the Warringah Ice Skating Centre, and also, of course, the Newcastle Ice Skating Centre. In fact, right around Australia, there are 24 ice hockey clubs, from Perth to Adelaide to Melbourne, Sydney, Newcastle, and right up to Brisbane. Hopefully next year the rink at Canberra will be opened, and ice hockey, we hope, will be played there. There are, in fact, 15 ice rinks dotted around the country. Not all of them, though, full size for ice hockey. Not all of them big enough for ice hockey to be played on. However, it's certainly a far cry when in the early 60s there was only one ice rink in Australia where ice hockey was played. That was the Palais down in St Kilda in Melbourne. Both Melbourne and Sydney, Bob, are the ice hockey capitals really of Australia. Melbourne more so than Sydney. They've had hockey longer there, and they've had rink support much longer than they have in Sydney, but it's growing in Brisbane, it's growing in Adelaide, certainly with the brand new ice rink there. Recently spent $3 million to open that rink, and all in all, I think ice hockey as a spectator sport certainly has a good future ahead of it.
Well, there's a tremendous difference in the rink now compared to when the skaters went off it at the end of that second period.
You could almost do your hair in it.
Yes, it does a tremendous job, that Zamboni.
Just awaiting the players to come down from the dressing room, getting last-minute instructions from their coaches. And as Bobby said, it'll probably be quite a tough and torrid match this final third period.
Yes, he mentioned there, Sandy, that he felt that the Australians with a three lineup, with a change of three teams, really should wear down the Blazers going into this final period. Of course, the Blazers with a fewer number in their team. I think they only have about 16 players in all.
Right, that's a good point that Bobby made. If Coach Gord Bettis elects to go with his three lines in this third period, quite conceivably they could almost run them into the ground with their numbers. However, don't expect the Blazers to go down easy. They're ahead now, and I'm sure they'll be looking at capitalizing on this lead and getting one quick goal at the start of play. That could take them comfortably into a victory, but then it's anyone's guess.
Right, the skaters out now on the rink, warming up their muscles for the start of the third period. The Canadian Trailblazers leading 3-2 at the start of the third period after being down 1-0 at the start of the second. We saw 4 goals scored in that second period.
I can see from our commentary position, Bob, that the Honourable Minister for Sport, Mr. Ken Booth, is certainly enjoying this match here. He, in fact, has risen to his feet a few times when play got so exciting. It's certainly a game that you can't keep still sitting in your seat as you watch it. Quite exciting.
Well, Ken Booth is certainly finding his job as the Minister for Sport and Recreation in New South Wales a very varied one. He becomes involved in as many sports as he possibly can. And as you say, he seems to be enjoying this match very much.
This third period will be divided into 2 10-minute halves, and the reason for that is because ice hockey is divided into 3 20-minute periods. They don't want to give either team special advantage in one end or the other. So the first 2 periods, one team plays in one end and one in the other, and they change over. And in the third period, we've got a good shot of the huddle that the Australian All-Stars are having. Last-minute instructions from Coach George Kenning, probably urging the players along and giving a bit of confidence to goalie Peter Aiken as they get ready to face off for this third and final period.
Well, we haven't seen Thornton on the ice at all for the Australians in this match. He may be injured.
No, I'd say, in fact, I believe that Coach Gord Bettis elected to start with Peter Aiken today. There wasn't an injury, just elected to start with Aiken today.
Well, Aiken having a fairly...
We have a tripping penalty coming up. The first penalty of the match, Igor Sadivi, is called, I believe, number 6, Grant Goodall. 2 minutes.
Goodall it is for the Canadian Trailblazers, tripping on the start of that face-off. So the first penalty in the match. The Canadian Goodall will have to serve a 2-minute penalty, a minor...
That's right, a 2-minute minor penalty, and what that means is the Blazers will now be with a man disadvantage for the next 2 minutes.
So the Australians going all out on the attack now. A chance in the next 2 minutes with the man down to get that goal back. The puck on the boards, flicked inside to Glenn. Glenn to Wozdecki. There's Ginsberg. Kuffner takes it away for the Blazers, breaking out into the Australian attacking zone. Defending zone, I beg your pardon. Off the boards, Wozdecki. Glenn. McDonald on the left wing. Inside, misses Glenn, goes past him. Kuffner again for the Canadians. Icing, I think.
No icing called. When there's a penalty, the idea is, of course, to get the puck out of your end and waste a bit of time, and that's exactly what the Blazers did in that case. No icing called.
So icing legal when the player or the team is suffering from a penalty. Glenn has it now for the Australians. Peterson picks it up. Back inside. Sidoni. Sidoni saving again for the Blazers. A good pass. Off his skates goes Sidoni. Glenn checking. McDonald. Peterson. Back to Glenn. Well played by the Australian All-Stars. Wilson there it was for the defence. A shot by Peterson. Well back over the centre line. That was a long shot from Peterson. Only just missing on the left glove side of Koshi.
You could almost think, Bob, that the Trailblazers had the man advantage.
Well, they seem to be moving the puck very well, don't they?
We've got another tripping penalty called here. Referee Glenn Gilbert has called a 2-minute minor tripping penalty, second penalty of the game.
So a second penalty in the game to the Canadian Trailblazers after 2 minutes of this third period. The score still 3-2, and the Canadians in a very desperate situation at the moment.
That's a penalty to number 7, Willie Wilson. Yes, the Blazers are going to be fighting for their lives now. They're going to be 2 men down probably for the next 60 seconds or so until one of their men gets back on.
Peterson has it on the left wing.
See how well the...
It's gone down to the corner. With Denny.
I noticed Goodall back on the ice, Bob, so the Blazers are now just 1 man down, and they were successful in killing that penalty that Grant Goodall took. They've now still got Willie Wilson in the box.
So 4 men back on the ice for the Blazers. Kim with the face-off. And Revelato, won by Kim. Picked up again by the Canadians. Back over the blue line it goes. No icing. It's clean. Aiken picks it up and gives it to Glenn. Setting up play behind the Australian goal. The Australians wanting to get back into that attacking zone as quickly as they can. They can't afford to waste too much time down here.
Oh, good heavens.
Oh,
dangerous.
Bad play there by Glenn. It was picked up by Revelato on the short side.
He has put the puck in the net. He has jammed the puck in through Peter Aiken's skates there, goalie Aiken's skates. That was a bad move there by the right winger John Glenn, who unfortunately lost control of the puck behind his own net, and capitalized by Blazer center Ron Revelato.
So 4-2 now. The Canadian Trailblazers go ahead after 4 minutes of this final period. Kim. Left behind, well left by Kim, back into Brown, a shot by Kenning, just misses, another shot for the Australians, well saved by Koshi. Out come the Canadians, off the boards, back in behind the Australian goal, Aiken has it. Picked up by Peterson on the defence for Australia, Brown on the right wing, takes it up over centre ice, back goes Kenny. Brown again. Sidoni it was who intercepted and picked that puck up for the Canadians.
Here's a fine shot on net from well behind the Blazers' own blue line. All-Stars having a bit of trouble getting the play, out of their own end.
Ginsberg, Sidoni! Ooh, taken, the glove by Aiken. And the puck put out of the rink, right out over the fence. Well, the Australian All-Stars still not working well in defence.
No, surprising. They're playing a much poorer game than they did Wednesday night. Their team play is lacking, and their passing doesn't seem to be on each other's sticks.
(4-2), 5 minutes gone in the final period. 15 minutes left in the match. As Peterson has called off the ice. McDonald in the face-off. Revelato, McDonald in behind the Australian goal. McDonald's had a good game for the Australians. Wozdecki. Ginsberg. That's Reidner for the Canadians. A snapshot out from the left point. Put back into the corner by Wilson. Heavy checking by Reidner there on Taylor. Here's Glenn. Wozdecki. McDonald takes it over the top. McDonald back inside to Glenn. A shot! Well, saved by McIntyre, who's just come on the ice. He took that puck on the run right off this bench. Well saved by McIntyre. Taylor in the left wing. Ginsberg, centre ice. Back down the boards. Huffner in the defence for the Blazers. Offside called, so the face-off just outside the blue line in the Australian defensive area.
Apparently, Bob, I've been talking about games in Brisbane Monday and Wednesday. The Monday night game, in fact, begins at 8 p.m. and the Wednesday night game begins at 6 p.m.
A shot from the centre line by the Blazers. It was blocked by the Australians, though. This time Solomon has it on the left wing. He's taken it right up over the blue line. Has a quick shot. Saved by Koshi.
Well, good wrist shot there from Mick Solomon. Mick Solomon's a South African-born player who spent most of his junior life here in Australia, his young life and his junior ice hockey years, and in fact is, you could almost say, an Australian born and bred ice hockey player.
7 minutes gone in the final period. And the score is 4-2, the Blazers leading. Back in their own defensive zone. Taylor taking across to the right wing where Sidoni picks up for the Canadians. Down the centre they come. Wilson. Sanders it is fighting now. Loden in the centre for the Australians. Looking for a man open on the right, can't find him, goes left. Well checked there by Sidoni.
I think the puck has gone up under the boards.
The puck has slipped under the door there at the back of the Blazers net. So play held off. It'll be a face-off just outside the Australian defensive area.
Well, for viewers right around the country who are watching this, especially ice hockey players and ice hockey fans, and hope you're enjoying the game, it's certainly a good indication of the caliber of hockey to expect in the new Australian National Ice Hockey League, which opens up in Newcastle and Melbourne and Adelaide next weekend.
Face-off taken by Kim. Kenning has it. A shot by Kenning, wide of the net. Brown it was who attempted to take the pass. Peterson has it now for the Australians. Carlson. Off the boards. Left behind by Peterson. Wasn't expecting that pass. Kenning. There's Brown. On the right wing. Back to Kim. A long pass. Clever play by the Australians. But Gordon is back and takes it behind his goal to set up defence for the Blazers. Cut back in behind the Blazers goal. Kuffner. Kenning, a shot wide. Kim. Here's Carlson. Big shot from Carlson, saved by Koshi. Kim is in there. Brown flicks it back. In the corner it goes. Gordon down the boards for the Canadians. Picked up by Kim in the centre. Peterson. Only a minute left in this first half of the third period, where Kenning has a shot. Oh, glove save.
A nice save by Crochet. A nice save there. I tell you, Cowboy Peterson's making work for himself, not just doing his job on defense, but also adding a little bit there on the offense. Nice moves. Well, we've got that firing line of Darryl McDonald, John Glenn, and Peter Gwozdecki out there. Maybe they can put the puck in the net, even that score up a little bit.
It's an attacking side for the Australians on the ice at the moment. Sidoni, the workhorse for the Blazers. McDonald has it. No, it's left for Peterson. Looking for McDonald. Goes through him to the Canadian defence, where Sidoni picks up. Good all. 10 minutes gone at the end of the first half of the third period. Only a 2-minute break now as the players change over. And it's 4-2 halfway through the third period. The referee calling play on. There's going to be no break in the middle of this third period. Just a changeover of ends by the two teams. 4-2, the Blazers leading with 10 minutes left in the match.
Yep, the All-Stars in a desperate position now. They must get a goal early up in the piece to at least give them a fighting chance. He's looking for, I'm sure Coach Gord Bettis is looking for an early goal here.
Off the glove from Goodall. Peterson. Donald and Peterson. Back to Goodall. Goodall takes it up the centre. Oh, drifting across the Australian goal. Aikens had to fall on that puck. Great save.
Very lucky, very lucky. Just got in there in time. The defence once again letting their wingers in there empty, letting them in there unattached, unprotected.
On 2 or 3 occasions now we've seen a loose pass back in front of the Australian goal where the Canadian attack really has been able to swoop on it.
Right.
McDonald. It's Carlson putting it off the boards for the Australian. Carlson back again. Down the centre he goes. Glenn, a shot. Saved in the glove by Koshy. Carlson. Huffner and McCarthy combining to bring the puck back into the Australian defensive zone.
Icing about to be called here
Carlson.
against the Blazers.
McIntyre chasing hard on that puck. Unable to put Peterson off the chase. So an icing called, so the puck to be brought back to the face-off inside the Blazers defensive zone.
Just an interesting note here, Bob. But apparently in the olden days when hockey was first played here, and it was first played in 1904, the goal judges stood on the back of the nets, actually on the ice, and waved the little red flag if a goal was scored. It's quite a dangerous occupation.
Yes, with the speed that puck moves and such a hard piece of plastic as well, that would be a dangerous occupation. Wilson. Now Ginsberg for the Australians in the defence. Kim picks it up on the centre ice, tapping it down. Kim takes it up again. McCarthy in there. McCarthy, who hasn't been used as much as I expected in this match.
He's got a penalty coming up against Bobby Brown.
Bobby Brown called.
2 minutes for roughing.
For roughing.
This will certainly hurt the All-Stars because the Blazers are cooking. And here's just their chance to increase that lead.
A quick changeover as they bring on their attacking unit, the Blazers now. Bobby Brown off for 2 minutes. It's still 4-2. The Blazers leading after 2 minutes of this final period.
This line here of Sidoni, Gordon and Sanders is certainly doing a good job for the Blazers tonight. Special marks, as I've said, to Al Sidoni, doing a great job out there.
Peterson keeping the puck back from his defensive zone. Over the blue line it goes.
The All-Stars are going to be killing as much time as they can. Just
Goodall behind his net. Kenning attempting to keep the pressure on. It comes out to Sidoni. Across it goes to Sanders. Peterson has it though for the Australian All-Stars. Peterson again being forced into the corner by Sidoni, who takes the puck. Peterson attempting to ice it. Kenning it is, has had to go back for the Australians to pick it up. Back into the centre. A shot for Lamore. Here's Kenning now, looking for Kim in front of him. On the left wing goes Kim. Back to Kenning. Saved by Koshy. Gordon. So that was a slap of a shot there from Sanders. It was well blocked by the Australians. Sanders again. Sidoni. Around Kenning. Back into Peterson.
Yep. The All-Stars have just walked into a second penalty, Bob. George Kenning, 2 minutes for tripping.
Well, the Australian All-Stars now finding themselves in a similar situation to what the Blazers were at the start of this third period. They have 2 men down, with probably at least a minute to go before Bobby Brown is released from the penalty box.
Yep, I'd say the frustration might just be getting to steep in a bit on the All-Stars here. They're trying hard, and maybe just a little bit too hard.
So, a crucial stage now for the Australians. Can their defence hold out? Kuffner on the left wing. Finding Reidner. A shot from Kuffner.
Ooh, a bullet
just
shot.
Wide. That was a tremendous shot from Kuffner. Just going wide on the right-hand side.
Oh, beautiful passing by these Blazers.
Sanders. That's McDonald for the Australians. Can he get it out of that defensive area? Wozdecki. Wozdecki,
got a hard
well
shot.
taken, Wozdecki. A shot well blocked by Koshy and picked up by Reidner for the for the Blazers. Where we see Revelato now. McIntyre in behind the Australian goal. Ginsberg. McDonald to Wozdecki on the left wing. Back to McDonald. McDonald taking it up, a slap shot over the top of the goal. Booming past goal at Koshy. Wilson combining with Reidner. There's Revelato. Ginsberg for the Australians, caught down by McDonald. Well done, left for Wozdecki, a shot, it's a goal!
A beautiful play. Let's hope we look at that on the video again, Bob. A beautiful play.
Well left by McDonald. Tremendous play. Darryl McDonald tapping down the puck, leaving it behind for him. Here's Kane Wozdecki.
Here we've got McDonald coming in with the puck. He slips a nice little drop pass that has the Blazers stunned for a second. They both skate past it, with Wozdecki coming in behind. He sidesteps one defender, has a goalie and a defenseman to beat, and tucks it away low in the bottom right-hand corner. A fine goal there by number 8, Peter Wozdecki.
Fine play by the Australians, especially with 2 men down. They now have their Bobby Brown out of the penalty area, so they have 4 men on the ice. They're down 4 goals to 3 as the Blazers mount their attack in the final stages of the match.
The All-Stars are now back at full strength with Kenning on the ice.
Kenning back on the ice. Full team for both sides. It's picked up by Brown on the left wing. Here's Kenning now for the Australian All-Stars, going right down the centre. Kenning a shot, saved by Koshi. Kim was coming in there to pick it up, and he was well blocked by Goodall. Stood Kim right up on his skates.
I can see Kenning there just looking at the referee as if to say, why wasn't there a penalty on that? But quite a good play by the defender, bringing him down, and quite legally. Good hockey action.
The game coming to a real head now as the Blazers battle to hold their 1-goal lead, in the Australian All-Stars pouring everything onto the attack as Brown takes it in on the short side. Can he get it back? Kim picks it up, takes it off his skates. Kushner blocking Brown strongly there. Again, Kim picked up on the block. Here's Ginsberg. Kushner.
Less than 4 minutes to go in this game.
Ginsberg a shot. Kenning chasing. Picked up by Peterson off the boards. The Blazers fighting hard. Kenning now bringing it across the ice. Kushner tapping it into the corner. Kenning down the boards. Peterson, gloves down, on the ice, a shot. Oh, well saved by Koshi. Long shot, but Kim can't beat the defence as McIntyre has it now for the Australians. Kim picks it up in the defence, a quick change by the Canadians, and McDonald comes on for the Australians. Down the right wing goes Kim, picked up behind him by McDonald. He's having a marvellous game, young Darryl McDonald. Back out to Glenn, back inside to McDonald. It's left by the Canadians. The Australians couldn't pick it up. Glenn has it now on the right point. Heavy checking from Goodall, taking the puck and freezing it on the boards.
Blazers intentionally freezing the puck there, hoping for a face-off as the seconds tick away. About 2 minutes left in this game.
2 minutes. The Blazers leading 4 goals to 2. 4 goals to 3, I beg your pardon.
Let's not forget the Blazers travel up to Brisbane for a game tomorrow night starting at 8 p.m. at the Four Seasons Ice Palace, and again Wednesday night at 6 p.m.
Can the All-Stars grab that goal they need? A quick shot from Glenn, just missing. McDonald fighting hard. He's left behind as Glenn picks it up for the Australians. He's checked there, picked up by Lamore for the Canadians. Sidoni and
there's a
Ginsberg.
3-on-1.
Sidoni back inside from Sanders. Sidoni couldn't pick it up. Peterson has the puck in on the boards for the Australians. And a face-off in the Australian defensive zone.
It's unfortunate we've got a face-off in the Australian All-Stars end, Bob, because the goalie could be pulled in this instance. The coach could elect to pull the goalie from the net and put an extra attacker on to give them 6 hockey players against the Blazers 5. Now, if the puck were a face-off down in the other end, they could do this, but it's a bit dangerous in their own end to pull the goalie.
Well, they're electing to let the Australians let them attack if they can, because they've kept their goalie on as they come in on the short side there, the Canadians. That was Sanders attempting to punch it in on the short side. They've still got the puck at the back of the Australian goal. There's trouble amongst a couple of the players. Tempers flaring up a little bit, but the Australians break out. Here's McDonald. Can he regain it? Goodall goes back to the Canadians in the corner.
Icing is called against the All-Stars. Just at that stage as the puck was shot down, the Australian All-Stars pulled their goalie, Peter Aiken. Only seconds remaining in this final third period.
4-3. 4-3. Can the All-Stars pick up a quick goal? Almost time now. 4-3. A face-off in the Australian defensive zone. They're going to have to pull something exceptional out of the hat here. McDonald. Time called, and there's the score. The match is all over. The Canadian Trailblazers defeating the Australian All-Stars by 4 goals to 3.
Quite an exciting match there, and almost a chance for the All-Stars to come back at the end. But the Blazers showed just what sort of hockey they've got, winning this game 4-3. A very good match.
With the Australians forming up in their
Both teams
defensive end, they'll come up now as traditional in the ice skating matches, ice hockey matches. Players congratulating each other from both teams, running through. It was a tremendous match for Cochet, the Canadian goalie.
Yes, it'd be interesting to see how many shots he faced, because the All-Stars certainly poured the pressure on there in the last few minutes. An indication of what's to come in Brisbane Monday and Wednesday. And again, I forgot to mention Friday of this week, Friday, June 6th at 6 p.m. when the Blazers play the last game of their 2-week national tour here in Sydney at Iceland.
So their record at the moment, the Trailblazers, they've played 3 matches and won 2 of those 3, only being defeated so far by the Sydney Allstars, City of Sydney Allstars on Wednesday night when they went down by 3-2, the goal being scored in the final period. But the Australian All-Stars then going down to the Blazers by 4-3.
It's interesting to note that while this is amateur hockey, professional players overseas at this very moment are earning anything up to $70,000 a year, just as an average wage, but nothing that will ever get close to that here in Australia. But we hope at least one day that ice hockey will reach that sort of a major spectator standard.
Well, Sandy, if I could have final comments from you on the match, where do you feel the Australians were let down? In their defensive area, do you feel?
Without a doubt, Bob. Without a doubt, their back line, their defensemen there, Phil Ginsberg, Jim Hoare, Noel Taylor, Danny Peterson, and Ramo Carlson, just didn't have the depth that the Blazers had, even though there were more defensemen that the All-Stars had at their call. The Blazers showed that with only a few defensemen and with experience, they could do it. Good goaltending, I think, by the Blazers also kept them in the game, and wide and sometimes bad shooting by the All-Stars kept them out of the game. All round a good effort by the Blazers.
Well, the enthusiasts coming onto the rink now to enjoy their turn on the ice. Repeating the scoreline, the Australian All-Stars going down to the Canadian Trailblazers by 4-3. This has been Bob Vincent and Sandy Logan at the Prince Alfred Ice Skating Rink in Sydney for ABC Sport.
Centres like that opened at Marsfield in Sydney's northern suburbs are helping redress the balance. Channel 028 has been checking out the growth and interest